UKIP has a mixed record in London. A disappointing sixth-place performance in the last mayoral election was followed by a much improved showing in the 2014 European election, when it finished third in the popular vote, a result also repeated in last year's general election. Yet in recent months, there's been disquiet within the party.
Well, there is certainly serious infighting within UKIP, and I think a lot of that is rooted in some unresolved grievances between Nigel Farage's supporters and his opponents. Unfortunately for UKIP, some of those people are its most prominent spokespersons, Suzanne Evans being one, Patrick O'Flynn being another, Douglas Carswell being their only MP. So it does seem that the party is continually struggling with party discipline.
UKIP got more vote every time.
Thank you, sir.
There was no sign of disagreement amongst the UKIP volunteers this week, who were out in force in East London trying to persuade voters.
So have you got a leaflet? Can I give you UKIP? Are you thinking of voting for us maybe on...
UKIP's candidate is culture spokesman Peter Whittle, who was upbeat about his campaign.
It's been fantastic. We're here at the moment in Dagenham, but we've been going all over London. It's different this time for UKIP, you know, compared to 2012. We had great coverage and extremely encouraging.
So what message is UKIP selling to voters? On housing, he wants to give first dibs to Londoners on new homes built on Greater London Authority land. And he wants to lobby the government to curb immigration, which he sees as exacerbating the housing crisis. On transport, he opposes the expansion of Heathrow and wants to scrap so-called vanity projects like the Garden Bridge and Emirates cable car. And he would like to see an emphasis on local policing, supporting their use of stop and search to reduce knife crime.
Now, on the UKIP stall today, you could find two types of leaflets. The first was for their mayoral candidate, Peter Whittle, but the second concerned Europe and the forthcoming EU referendum. So that might beg the question, has UKIP got its eyes entirely on the mayoral prize?
I think UKIP is focusing mainly on the EU referendum on June the 23rd and probably devoting a little bit less attention to these really important elections that we have in May for the London mayoral elections, as well as the Welsh Assembly elections and local council elections across England. Most of the attention is focusing very much on the referendum because, you know, UKIP's been fighting since 1993 to deliver that, so it's clearly prioritising that moment.
So, will UKIP pick up votes from Eurosceptics in London, or has it been sidelined? The next few weeks will be crucial for the party.
Raphael Sheridan reporting there while Peter Whittle is with me. Welcome to the Sunday Politics, Peter. Must be a bit frustrating for you, mustn't it? This campaign, you're the mayoral candidate, but everybody's attention's on the European referendum.
Well, not at all. I mean, first of all, obviously it's fantastic that we as a party actually managed to get this referendum.
I think it was David Cameron who gave us the referendum.
He was kicked, he was, you know, dragged kicking and screaming, but basically without us it wouldn't be here. But actually, no, it's not a situation that I recognise, because it seems to me that our campaign is probably one of the best run in London. In fact, we've had a huge amount of support and a huge amount of activity.
I suppose it's whether that support turns into votes, isn't it? Because if you look at UKIP's record, it's pretty disappointing, isn't it, in London elections? I mean, in all four of them, you've never managed better than 6%. That was in 2004. In the subsequent two, you were, what, in sixth place both times with 1% and 2% respectively?
Yes, I know, but look, since then, the whole situation has changed. Since 2012, which was the last time we had a mayoral election, and for example, at the general election last year, we were in third place. We're in third place in... No one disputes that for a moment.
No, but
we're the third party in London now.
Well, your third party, certainly at the general election in London, but only with I say only, and it may seem a lot to you, but under the current system, the mayoral system, you got, what, 8% of the vote in the general election. Even if you got that, you'd be way short of getting into the last two that are needed to have any chance of becoming mayor, wouldn't you?
I mean, look, I think the thing is, the point is this, is that one of the reasons why a lot of people are not that interested in this campaign in the public so far is that we've got incredibly uninspiring people, and the fact is they are not actually dealing with the issues that we are talking about, and that is why we are gaining so much ground, and we have got 3 weeks left.
So your view is that you will poll better than the 8% you did in the general election?
Oh yes, I think so, definitely.
And you're confident of that?
Yeah, we've also got candidates all over London. We've got candidates on the list and in the constituencies. We never had that before.
What sort of mayor would you rather have, a Eurosceptic or a pro-European?
Well, I mean, that seems an odd question for me coming from UKIP.
No, it's not an odd question, because if you're not going to finish in that last two, you've got a choice between Sadiq Khan and Zach Goldsmith. I just wonder where your second preference vote is going to go, and what you would be saying to your
Sean,
party
I'm not
supporters.
interested in talking about second preferences.
So, in other words, you're wiping out any chance of UKIP voters having an impact on the final result.
No, not at all. They can actually, I don't have control over what people do. All I'm saying is at the same time, I am going for this campaign for UKIP. It is the reason people are voting for it is because of the things we stand for, which are not just about the European Union, although, of course, they are hugely connected to it, such as immigration.
It isn't just about the European Union. We haven't had your manifesto yet, but
It's
we've got
coming out
some.
next week.
Okay, but we've got some ideas and sorts of things. We alluded to them in the film. Housing, very important question in London, not least given the way our population is predicted to grow in the next few years. How many homes need to be built in London each year, in your view, to solve our housing shortage?
I will not talk about figures, because that is what the other ones do, right? They actually don't talk about the underlying problems. How do
you address those problems if you don't talk about figures?
What they do is they're going to say we're going to have 40,000 or 50,000. What I've been doing throughout the whole campaign so far, and in fact I brought the other candidates up on it last week in the London debate, was that the overriding driver of our housing crisis is the fact that the London population is going up by 1 million a decade.
So what do you do about that as Mayor of London?
Right, well, what you should do as somebody who is standing for the mayoralty, or indeed as mayor, it is your absolute moral obligation, I'd say, and indeed my view, that you should absolutely put the case to government and actually say this is enough.
Because basically you don't have any power over immigration.
No, but wait a minute. It wasn't that long ago that actually Boris Johnson was talking about having an amnesty on illegal migration.
Yes,
so in fact, this is very,
but he couldn't
important.
achieve it because central government turned around and told him, none of your business. That's what we do. You're the Mayor of London. Concentrate on London services and policies.
What I concentrate on is what matters to Londoners. In your own BBC poll, the top two issues were housing and migration.
Yes, and housing was above migration, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. But the fact is that those two things are inextricably linked.
So are you basically saying the only way to deal with the housing problem in London is to have fewer people living in London?
We absolutely have to ease that demand. There is no question, because otherwise all these targets of 40,000, 50,000 are meaningless. We will have to go and build on the green belt. We will have to go further and further out.
I wonder who then gets to live here, because another part of your policy is to give priority in social housing to Londoners, as you define it. Who would count as a Londoner?
Well, we've been quite straight and upfront about that. We think that if you've been in London when it comes to social housing for 5 years, if you've put down roots, if you're working in London, we think 5 years is a very reasonable time, right? I mean, to qualify, and therefore you should be prioritised.
So that would mean, based on the logic you've set out there, that somebody who had come to this country from another country but lived in London for 5 years would be given priority over social housing over, say, a Mancunian who relocates here to work.
Well, I'm concerned about Londoners, right? I'm concerned about Londoners as they are now. So, in fact, you have to actually start doing something about this.
So internal migration within the UK is, for you, also a problem?
No, because the fact is the vast bulk of migration into London is international.
See, I don't...
The vast bulk
I take your point about that. What I don't understand is how we will then deal with, for example, if you have this kind of priority, with filling jobs in public services, which often require getting people to move from other parts of the country to them. Jobs like paramedics, nurses, police officers aren't that well paid, and therefore often they need the state's help with housing. But you're saying, no, they won't get it.
No, it is a very, very negative way that you're looking at this. The fact of the matter is, at the moment, what we find all over London is people feel that they are actually not really being treated fairly when it comes to social housing. First of all, I would say this. Social housing, I am a great, great fan of social housing. I would love to see a golden age of social housing. I think it brings stability to areas. I think that it is a noble enterprise, actually. And I don't like the way Tories talk about it in talking about sink estates and all the rest of it. However, the fact is that there's an infinite amount, obviously, of supply. You have to look at the demand. I mean, it's all very well picking holes in this, but the fact is no other candidate will even talk about this. I have to say, they won't even talk about the fact that there is a huge and overinflated demand.
And you've talked about it very eloquently this lunchtime. Let me ask you finally briefly about transport. You want to scrap the cable car. Why?
When I go to work every morning, which I do on the DLR, the Docklands Light Railway, I go under this thing, the cable car, and it looks like loads of sort of empty matchboxes going across the sky. It's a vanity project.
It's also a vanity project that apparently is turning a profit now.
Well, that's
what TfL says.
That's as maybe. What I'm saying is that this mayor has been absolutely wedded to these kind of vanity projects, not just this one.
Do you know how much it'll cost to cancel it?
There's a Garden Bridge too.
£20 million, they say, 14 lost sponsorship, £5 million in penalty for cancelling the contract.
All I'm saying is I would never have vanity projects. We have to invest in London's infrastructure. We have to invest in the transport infrastructure. We do not need things such as garden bridges and cable cars.
Peter Whittle, UKIP candidate for Mayor of London.
Thank
Thanks
you
very much for being with us this lunchtime. My thanks